What Detective Dave Johns discovered in that hotel room at 12:47 a.m. would shatter everything he believed about justice, love, and the thin line between guilt and innocence. When Dave Johns' phone buzzed at exactly 12:47 a.m., he had no idea he was about to walk into the most twisted case of his career and meet the man who would challenge every wall he'd built around his heart. The 35-year-old, 6 feet 3 inches detective pushed through the bitter Manhattan wind, his athletic frame cutting through the shadows toward the Plaza Hotel's glowing entrance. Dave's piercing eyes scanned the hotel lobby as his badge caught the light. As head of NYPD's Special Crimes unit, he'd perfected the art of emotional distance. His rule-following nature kept people at bay, protecting him from the vulnerability he'd learned to fear. But tonight, that armor was about to be tested, and then everything went sideways. The hotel manager approached Dave with trembling hands. "Detective Johns, this is unlike anything we've ever seen. Room 4712, penthouse level. There's a body and we have a suspect, but..." The man couldn't finish his sentence as Dave was already heading for the elevator. The elevator doors opened to reveal a scene that would haunt Dave's dreams. Security guards flanked the hallway, their faces pale with shock. But it wasn't the crime scene that made Dave's heart skip. It was the man sitting in handcuffs by the wall. Larry Tan, even in distress, even with blood on his expensive suit, he was the most beautiful man Dave had ever seen. This is where it gets absolutely insane. The penthouse suite door swung open, and Dave Johns forced himself to focus on the evidence. Blood spattered the marble floors, cryptic messages scrawled across the walls, and in the center, a body covered in white sheets. But his eyes kept drifting to Larry Tan, whose dark eyes met his with a mixture of fear and something else. Something that made Dave's carefully controlled world tilt off its axis. "Detective Johns," Larry said, his voice steady despite the circumstances. "I know how this looks, but I need you to listen to me." "You're not going to believe this next part." Dave approached with his trademark professional demeanor, but Larry's presence filled the room like electricity. "Mr. Tan, you're the prime suspect in a murder. Anything you say will be used against me, I know," Larry interrupted, his intense gaze never leaving Dave's face. "But something tells me you're different. You actually care about the truth." Dave felt his walls trembling. This wasn't how interrogations were supposed to go? Hold up, this detail changes everything. As Dave examined the crime scene, Larry watched his every move with an intelligence that both frustrated and fascinated the detective. The blood patterns were wrong, the timeline didn't add up, and Larry's story, while circumstantial, had an honesty that Dave's instincts couldn't ignore. "You don't believe I did this," Larry said quietly. It wasn't a question. Dave looked up from his evidence bag. "It doesn't matter what I believe. It matters what I can prove." "Bullshit," Larry said with a slight smile that made Dave's heart race. "You're too smart to ignore the inconsistencies." But the real bombshell was coming. Dave found himself drawn into Larry's orbit despite every professional instinct screaming at him to maintain distance. As they talked through the evidence, Larry's quick wit and perceptive observations impressed him. But more than that, Larry saw through his carefully constructed emotional barriers. "You know what I think, Detective?" Larry leaned forward, his voice low and intimate despite the uniformed officers nearby. "I think you've spent so long protecting yourself that you've forgotten what it feels like to trust someone." Dave's jaw tightened. "This isn't therapy, Mr. Tan." "No, it's not. But maybe it should be." This is when everything exploded. The federal agents who burst through the door changed everything. Dave recognized the lead agent, Commissioner Hayes, his mentor and father figure. "Dave, step away from the suspect," Hayes commanded. "We're taking over this case." "Sir, with respect, there are inconsistencies in the evidence that suggest..." "That suggests nothing," Hayes cut him off. "Larry Tan had motive, Means and opportunity. Case closed. Dave watched as they prepared to take Larry away, and something in the younger man's eyes, not panic but disappointment, made his chest tighten. In the chaos of the federal takeover, Larry managed to slip Dave a small piece of paper. Their fingers touched for just a moment, and Dave felt a shock of connection that left him breathless. Later, in the precinct bathroom, Dave unfolded the note. Room 1247, Meridian Hotel. 1 hour. If you want the truth, you'll come alone. If you want to save an innocent man, you'll trust me. -L, double quote. Dave stared at his reflection in the mirror. Every rule, every protocol said to ignore this. But Larry's eyes, those eyes held secrets that could either damn them both or set them free. Now here's where it gets absolutely crazy. The Meridian Hotel was everything the plaza wasn't. Small, intimate, shadowy. Dave found room 1247 with his hand resting on his service weapon and his heart hammering against his ribs. Larry opened the door, no longer the blood-stained suspect, but a man in a simple white shirt that somehow made him look even more devastating. "You came," Larry said softly. "I'm a cop. This is insane. You're a man who cares about justice, and right now justice needs you to listen." In the hotel room, Larry laid out a conspiracy that went deeper than Dave had imagined. The victim wasn't random. He was a whistleblower who discovered corruption in the NYPD that reached the highest levels. "Your Commissioner Hayes isn't who you think he is," Larry explained, spreading photographs and documents across the bed. "He's been selling information to the mob for years." Dave's world tilted. "That's impossible. Hayes trained me, mentored me, and set you up to take the fall when this investigation got too close to the truth." As Larry explained the intricacies of the frame-up, Dave found himself not just convinced by the evidence, but captivated by the man presenting it. Larry's passion for justice matched his own, and his vulnerability beneath the confident exterior called to something deep in Dave's soul. "Why should I trust you?" Dave asked, though he already knew his answer. Larry moved closer, close enough that Dave could see the gold flecks in his dark eyes. "Because you already do. And because I'm falling in love with a man who's too afraid to let anyone in. This revelation will shock you to your core?" The words hung between them like a live wire. Dave's breath caught as Larry reached up to touch his face, fingers tracing the line of his jaw with infinite gentleness. "Don't," Dave whispered, but he didn't pull away. "Don't what?" "Don't tell you that you're the most beautiful man I've ever seen. Don't say that your dedication to truth makes me want to be better. Or don't do this." Larry's lips brushed against Dave's, soft and questioning, giving him every opportunity to pull away. Dave's carefully constructed walls crumbled as he pulled Larry against him, kissing him with 10 years of suppressed longing and desperate need. Larry's hands fisted in his shirt, and Dave tasted freedom on his lips. The freedom to feel, to want, to need someone else. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Larry whispered against his mouth, "Now will you help me prove my innocence?" Dave rested his forehead against Larry's. "I'll prove it. But first, we need to stay alive long enough to expose Hayes." What's coming next is absolutely insane. Their plan was dangerous and completely outside protocol. Dave would return to the precinct and act normal while gathering evidence against Hayes. Larry would use his connections in the business world to trace the money trail that would prove the commissioner's corruption. "If this goes wrong," Dave said as they prepared to part, "if Hayes realizes what we're doing,